You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 171.5, the Combat Sports Report with Hanson Crafton. Hanson looks back at last week and ahead to this week in mixed martial arts and in boxing.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Hanson Crafton. First, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going to happen this weekend, although you said not a very busy schedule. But we're going to go back and, although it's a few days later now because of my illness and now Susie's, we are a few days late, but we're going to talk about what happened last weekend, and there was some really good stuff last weekend, and
Yes,
Hanson was there watching it all just for you. So, welcome, Hanson, and tell me what's going on this weekend.
How's it going, man?
Going
you feeling
great.
any better?
I feel a lot better. I wish Susie was feeling better.
Yeah, something's going around right now. Everybody's been sick at work.
Yep. School too.
Yeah. This weekend don't have much. We got a UFC card. Nothing really spectacular. It's in Australia, so I think it's going to have an early start time. But we do have two title fights on there. That's probably the two fights that's really worth everybody's time. The other fights on the card are guys with a lot of losses and stuff. Not really a strong card for the UFC this weekend. But you do have two title fights. We've got the middleweight champion, 185 pounds, Dricus du Plessis, and he is fighting Sean Strickland. Now they have already fought before.
Those are two names I know, Hanson.
Yeah, I mean they've been in the news a lot lately. It's kind of the tides are kind of changing in that division. We'll talk about it a little bit, but Izzy fought last weekend. He suffered another tough loss. So it seems like it's kind of the old guards are kind of going away now, and you got these new names that are coming up. Strickland, he's in the news a lot. He's kind of a outspoken guy, to say the least. And du Plessis, he's not really as outspoken, but he's kind of got his name out there from his fighting. But it's, like I said, it's a rematch from last year. They fought in January of last year. It was a close split decision win for du Plessis. Du Plessis he's won 10 straight. He's 22-2. He hasn't lost a fight in the UFC. I think he's won all 8 of his fights since coming to the UFC. So he's been on a little bit of a roll. Strickland is 29-6. He's a guy that's been up and down. He actually started in the 170 weight class, welterweight. He didn't have much success there. Had some success, but ran a couple tough fights. Moved up to 185 pounds, and he's found some success there. So he's coming in. He's won 4 of his last 5. His loss was to du Plessis in the championship fight in January. So it'll be an entertaining fight. Both these guys will be in shape. Strickland's a guy who will push the pace a little bit. He comes in extremely good condition, so he'll push the pace. So he will have times where he's not pressing the action as much, but he does have more finishing capabilities than Strickland. That makes me lean towards him in this fight. I think he has more ways to win. Strickland's good on the feet, but he's more of a combination guy. He's not really going to throw many power punches. He's a jab, front kick to the body. He'll throw a couple of twos down the middle, but he's not really looking to get anybody out of there. Does have, like I said, great condition, and he's got good boxing. So he is effective on the feet, but I just think Dricus has too many ways to win. Like I said, he's got power. 20 of his 22 wins are by finishes, so he does stop people. And I just think he's going to have that mental edge for having the victory over him last year. And I think he gets it done in that fight.
Also, this weekend in England is a pretty big heavyweight fight. Of course, the heavyweights of the division I follow most. My philosophy in watching boxing is I want to watch the guys who would beat everybody head to head, and that's clearly almost always the heavyweights. So,
Yes.
Chisora and Otto Wallen fight in Manchester.
Yes.
Both guys have been involved in the championship level of the heavyweight division. So, I would assume this is kind of an elimination fight. Whoever loses this one, we're not going to hear from anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Wallen, if you look at Wallen, he's got two losses. He's
Yeah,
27-2, but his two losses are to Joshua and Fury.
that's
So, that's not two bad losses. I lean on him for this fight. Chisora is a guy who's been around. He's fought everybody.
yeah.
He's fought Wilder, Fury, Joshua. I mean, he's fought them all. But he is at the end of his rope. Wallen, yeah, it's like you said. It's kind of this fight will kind of tell him where he is. Granted, he has only lost to two of the best fighters at heavyweight, but he doesn't have many spectacular wins either. So
It's not
we'll
far
kind of,
of Dominic Brazil's probably his best win, and most people don't even know who that is. So
yeah. I mean, it's not a fight that's gonna bring a bunch of eyes to the table, but it is a fight that will do good in UK. I think that's why it's over there. I think Chisora is ranked 15 in heavyweight, and Wallen might be 12. So it's two guys right outside the top 10. Yeah, it'll kind of like a placement fight. We'll kind of see where Wallen is. I think he'll win, but we'll see what kind of fashion.
yeah, big, powerful Swedish guy who now lives in England. So be interesting to see what happens in that one. All right. So last weekend, Hanson, you witnessed some really good fighting.
Yeah, so last weekend, first just a little bit, you had the UFC that was in Saudi Arabia. So it was a good Saturday. I love when you have a card that's kind of out of the country, so you get to wake up. I woke up, went to the gym, came back, and around 12 o'clock, the prelim started for the UFC card. So you already got fights started, and then the boxing was right after that. So you got to see um, Israel Adesanya fought, which he's still a big name. He's coming on some like a losing streak. He's lost four of his last five now. Kind of at the end of his run, but he was a world champion. Did a lot of good things in his time. So it was still interesting to watch him fight. He fought a guy coming up, Imavov, and he was coming off three straight. He's a finisher. He's got 15 wins. Well, now he's got 16 wins, and 11 of those are by stoppage. So he was able to stop Izzy. He hurt him in the second round. He dropped him with the right hand, and then ended up finishing him on the ground with strikes. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. He does have a loss to Strickland, who is fighting for the belt. That was on short notice, and I don't think he came in the best shape, so he struggled in the later rounds of that fight. So it could be interesting to see him fight Strickland again. But I think that is the last time we'll see Izzy in any big fights. I think he's earned the right to keep fighting if he wants to, but I don't think we'll see him in any more big fights going forward. And then at nighttime was my favorite. The boxing card was outstanding. You had three really good fights on there. Pitbull Cruz was involved in another just brawl like he does. He's that legendary Mexican style fighter. He knows one way to fight, and that is just forward, and throw punches, throw punches, throw punches. And the other guy stood in there with him. It was a really good fight. Right after that, we got to see Stephen Fulton and Brandon Figueroa. They had a rematch from a 2021 fight. Yes, and that was another really good fight. Fulton was a guy that I think some people were kind of doubting. He went in there and he looked outstanding. Everybody looks bad against Inoue, and I think Fulton's just a victim of that. Even myself was kind of doubting him some, but I think that if you lose Inoue, that's no knock on anybody. Inoue's blown through everybody's fought, so I think it's tough to judge Fulton off the Inoue loss. But he looked great. And then you had the main event, which was Benavidez against David Morrell, and that was just your classic boxing fight. I mean, it was Benavidez looked outstanding. I don't want to be recency biased, but I think that was the best Benavidez we've seen. He's 30-0, but if you had, it's hard to critique an undefeated guy, but if you had to critique him some, I would say he starts slow and sometimes he comes out of shape, which could be the result of, start slow could be the result of being out of shape. But that's the only two things you could knock him for. And he came in shape and he had foot on the gas from the start. And it was just beautiful. And he had the peekaboo guard going. He walked Morrell down. He walked through his shots. He kept the pace going. He threw a lot of punches. He was mixing it up, going to the body. His hands were very fast. It was the way he was throwing the left and pulling Morrell's hands down, then coming back with the right, just constantly. It was great to watch. Morrell was impressive. He's a dog for a young guy taking such a dangerous fight. He looked really good. His issue, the only thing that happened is you could tell that he's never had that type of pressure before. Like I said, Benavidez was on his front foot from the start of the fight to the end of the fight. Even after getting hurt a couple of times, Benavidez would come back and just put the pressure right back on Morrell. But Morrell was still there. He just ran out of gas a little in the later rounds. And so he had to start fighting in spurts. He could come with a good combination, but then he had to sit back and wait a little bit. But when you do that against a guy who puts the pressure on like Benavidez, you're going to take damage. And I think that's what cost him the fight is he couldn't keep Benavidez off him because once it got to the fifth round, he had to start fighting in spurts. And everything was, 5-punch combination, but then I got to take a rest. And with Benavidez, it's just hard to get that rest because he just stays in your face and he's constantly punching. And it was a fantastic fight. I'm really excited for Benavidez to fight the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol. I think that's going to be an outstanding fight. And I'm also interested to see what Morrell does. I think him and Berlinga would be a good fight. Maybe a couple more wins and maybe see him against somebody like Caleb Plant. That would be a good fight. So, it was a really good fight. And it was one of those fights where kind of both guys won. I think people were expecting Benavidez to win if he came in shape and came in and looked like the Benavidez we've seen before. I think people were kind of expecting him to win. But Morrell showed he's an outstanding fighter as well. He's just, somebody had to take that chance and fight Benavidez, and he was the guy to do it. And it's one of those losses where I don't look at it as a loss for him. He went there and showed everybody something, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here.
And after getting beaten for 11 rounds, or at least the first 8, actually got a knockdown in the 11th. And, of course, Benavidez just came back and showed why he's a champ.
The knockdown I think it was more their feet got caught up together. Benavidez was doing a lot of side to side, and his foot got caught on the outside of Morrell's foot, and then Morrell kind of gave him a little nudge until he kind of tripped up. His hands hit the mat, so you know how they do. They called a knockdown. It was outstanding. Now, he did clip him in the 9th, and he wobbled Benavidez, but Benavidez showed a good chin. He was able to take it, and he just got right back on the horse and got right in his face, and he puts that pressure on, and it's tough to deal with. It's going to be interesting to see who can deal with Benavidez's pressure.
Is he the best in his division?
I think so. I know we got the big boys, Bivol and Beterbiev is the 22nd, which that is, they fought once and it was an outstanding fight. So this one's probably going to be even better. Beterbiev is a nightmare, man. He fought Usyk in the Olympics. Yeah. He's a power puncher and he's a hunter. He's a guy when he fights, he's hunting. It seems like he's kind of tough. He's hard to hurt. I don't know. I think Beterbiev probably is the harder fight. I think Bivol, he doesn't really punch. He's not going to be able to hurt Benavidez to keep him off of him. So he'll just have to live off his counters. And I think it would look just kind of like it did against Morrell, but Morrell is a better puncher than Bivol is.
All right, Hanson, thanks so much. You and I will do this again in just a couple of days because we're a little late this week. we will recap the weekend sometime after the fights. Thanks so much,
All righty.
Hanson.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks again so much to Hanson for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. Worked with him for years at the News and Tribune down here in Jeffersonville and loved every minute of it. So glad that he's decided to join the Central Indiana Sports Report. And thank you for listening. Always appreciate it. Please go like, subscribe, or follow us. That really helps, as does telling a friend about the Central Indiana Sports Report. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.